Well, hey, y'all, welcome into A Glitch in the Matrix. I'm so glad you guys are here with me today. I have a great show for you guys. And I have Dr. John Stamey here with us today. I just put the link to his podcast in the comments in the live chat today. He's got a podcast called ScaryCast, and it is phenomenal. It's really good. Our friend Barry Littleton was on there last night, and Robin Haynes McCrae and Matthew Delph was on there. And so you guys go check that out when you get a chance. Okay. I'm bringing Dr. Stamey on today because he is my resident expert on the Bishopville Lizardman. He's written books about it. He lives in South Carolina. So we're going to talk about that. Dr. John has always had an interest in the paranormal. He runs a number of Comicons, as well as Bigfoot and Lizardman festivals, you guys. He co-hosts ScaryCast, a weekly podcast on Blog Talk Radio, and he's published several books. And we're going to talk about this glitch in the Matrix today. That is the Bishopville Lizardman, aka the Lizardman of Scape or Swamp. And for you guys who follow me on my remote viewing show that I do, I remote viewed this. Of course, I didn't call it the Bishopville Lizardman. I called it the Lizardman of Scape or Swamp, aka it's the same thing. And it was a very interesting show. So we're going to talk about that today, plus Bigfoot and a little bit of UFO. Okay, is going to be thrown in there. So I'm going to bring up Dr. John to the show. Hey, Dr. John.
Hey, Jessica, how are you doing?
Hey, I am excellent today. I am so excited to have you here. I have been looking forward to talking with you about the Lizardman for a long time.
Well, I have too. And first of all, thank you very much. I'm normally the host. It's so much fun to be the guest, you know?
I know. You know what? I enjoy going on other people's shows too. And I was on ScaryCast not too long ago. We were talking about Mel's Hole. That was weird.
Yes, it was. And it was a lot of fun. Our mutual friend, Matthew Delph, called you up and got you on there. So I wanted to give him at least a shout out for getting you on the show that night.
Totally. You know what? I'd pretty much do any kind of show he asked me to, because he and I have a lot of fun together. And so, yeah, I'm still waiting for him to come on my show at Spaced Out Radio. So
okay.
If you tell him it's time. Okay. Next time you talk to him.
I will tell him. I talk to him about every day. And also we have another mutual friend that we don't normally talk about much, and that's Trey Hudson.
Trey, he's the head of my team. That's right. One of my teams. Yeah, I love Trey.
Yeah, he's a great guy. In fact, I sent him a voice text the day before yesterday, and he just got back to me and said, I've been meaning to get back with you and talk with you, so I can't wait to say, well, I was just on Jessica's show. You missed it, okay?
You know what? Actually, Trey and I are both going to be speaking at the Molina Bigfoot Festival on November the 12th. I believe it's in a couple of Saturdays, a week from this Saturday, down in South Georgia. And now, Dr. John, you throw Bigfoot festivals, because I was actually a speaker at the one in Georgia we just had this past year.
Yes, you were, and you did a wonderful job. Yeah, we have the Georgia Bigfoot Conference, and that is, it's going to be in April this year. With COVID, we kind of had to take the best shot at a weekend, but we're going to be moving it back to end of March by 2024, which is where it needs to be, you know? Yeah. And so that's where it's going to be, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have you back if you'll be there. Matt will be there. Robin and Pat McCrae will be there. Lots of folks will be there. So it's just going to be a lot of fun. It's kind of a little bit of a homecoming. It's just a bunch of us that are friends talking about Bigfoot, and it's just a lot of fun.
Well, that's what it's all about. It is quite a community, you know, and I'm excited to meet new people every time I go to those events, and everybody's got a story, and I know you got a lot of stories to tell. So
I have a
let's talk
few.
about them today because I am very much interested in the Bishopville Lizardman, and I have to say I believe there's not just one Lizardman there, John. I think there's several.
I
What
believe
do you
you're
think?
right. Although I think it might be that there was one that was seen over and over and over again. There were 14 articles in the Lee County Observer, and I was fortunate enough that I am friends with the guys at the Camden Independent, which is the newspaper that owns the Lee County Observer, and they let me republish all of those stories in my latest book, which is going to be coming. It'll be available on John LeMay's site. John's a really good friend of mine, and so there'll be a link on the ScaryCast podcast as soon as it goes up. In fact, John edited the book for me, got it back, and I've been really busy trying to get my Comicons back in order because of COVID and everything. So thank goodness on November the 19th, I will be doing a Comic-Con right next to Cherry Point Marine Base in Havelock called the Havelock Comic-Con. And then I'll have a little bit of downtime that I can go ahead and get this book up so that people can buy it. It's a really good book. I would say it took me 6 years to write. And when you
Wow.
spend 6 years doing something, is probably going to be pretty good. And it was. I'm very proud of the book. And so, and I'll start out with my introduction to the book because I think it's worth stating. It's called Hyman's Categorical Imperative. And it says, make sure there is something to be explained when you're explaining it. And for sure, there's something there, or there was something there in Bishopville between 88 and 90 in last century, 1988 to 1990. And also, there was something to be explained in the early 30s and in the teens, I think around 1910. And what I can say is why are those dates important? Well, I interviewed a number of people in Bishopville, and I found out one reason that the lizard man showed up is those were periods of extreme drought and extreme heat. And because of that, the water levels were down, and ultimately the water from the Atlantic Ocean pushed up farther. And it pushed up, so whatever was down there came on up toward Scape Swamp. I mean, that was
Wow.
the nearest large body of wetness. We'll call it that.
Hmm. Wow. That's fascinating. It's actually important that you did that type of research as to what the weather was like and the conditions back then, because that would explain why a creature would emerge from underground
Well,
or wherever these things are living.
it does explain it to that extent. And in fact, what's interesting is I never talk about anything in this book that's not a hardcore fact or that's not in a newspaper article. So, I mean, that's the whole point of this piece of research. This is something that anybody can read, and whether you like it or not, and skeptics don't like the lizard man. In fact,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little bit about skeptics here in a minute, but skeptics don't like the lizard man because skeptics have 3 tricks that they want to pull on you. You ready for these, Jessica?
I'm ready. Yes.
The first one they say is, well, it's just not true. That's their first argument.
Hmm.
Their second argument is, well, it's too fantastic to even conceive it being true. And then the
Hmm.
third one is, if neither one of those work, they just attack the person that is discussing the event. And
Their
I've got an
character.
example.
Hmm.
Exactly. And I've got an example from Bishopville directly that was part of Christopher Davis. I mean, Christopher Davis was a young man. He had just turned 18 years old, and lo and behold, he saw the lizard man one night. It was a pretty scary
Hmm.
thing, and it's very well documented. And so what I did was, there were a couple skeptics. I don't remember their names. They're not worth calling. But what they said was, well, was he drunk? Was he high? Or was he out messing around with some girl? Neither. So what I did was Christopher Davis worked at the local McDonald's at the intersection of US Highway 15 and Interstate 20. And what I can
Hmm.
tell you is that McDonald's was at the time the busiest McDonald's on Interstate 20 South Carolina. It was open 24 hours a day. And I just promptly walked in. There was an older gentleman who was the manager. And I said, well, let me ask you something. Do you ever ask your employees on that on the late night shift to work overtime? Oh gosh, yes, because we're so busy that we have to get cleaned up and get everything ready to convert over to breakfast at 6 o'clock. And so I frequently would ask my people to work an hour or two or three. And what I would do is not only would I pay them overtime, I would also give them food. And so that explains why Chris Davis had 2 bags of Big Macs.
Big Macs, that's my favorite.
And, you know, God, I love Big Macs, but you got to order them with extra sauce.
That's my
Big Mac sauce is the bomb.
Yeah,
exactly. But the whole
so you do your research, John.
Well, it's called. This is Matt Delph's phrase. It's called boots on the ground. I mean, if you were going to do research, don't do anything from thousands of miles away. You're not going to get the story. Like here's an example. John LeMay and I have got some projects. John LeMay is the most prolific paranormal author in the country. He's got 44 books out. John's, I think, 39 years old. He's got that many books out, and he makes I love John. He makes a full-time living off selling his books through Amazon. And I always tell him he's my hero. He says, well, John, we'll get you there. And so sure enough, John LeMay and I are putting a book together for release in January. It's about Bladenboro Monster. And so now here's an example of skeptics. So I go up there to Bladenboro. It's a little tiny town. It's about a crossroads with a library, a police station, and a pawn shop. That's about all Bladenboro's got. So I go up there.
And a stop sign.
Oh, I hate to tell you this. They have 2 stoplights, but
two.
You know, one
they got 2. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I go up
Big
there,
city,
and I ask everybody that I see, all right, what's this Bladenboro Monster? Nobody knew. That thing was seen in 54 and 55, 1954 and 1955. I finally got one older gentleman to say, oh, it's just some old dog. Okay, that's great. Some old dog that drained the blood out of everything it touched. Great. And looked terribly frightening. So, and then another one said, well, I don't know. It's on the internet. That's all we got. And he didn't even know what was there. So out of about 50 people that I asked, 2 of them knew it. One of them knew enough to say, go on the internet and find out the information. And the other one said, oh, it was just some old dog. So first of all, not a lot of people in Bladenboro know about what is potentially the greatest tourism attraction, because the greatest paranormal tourism attraction in the United States is the Mothman. And Jessica, I know you love the Mothman, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do. Never met him.
Right. And what I can tell you,
I like him.
When I spoke with the Chamber of Commerce up there in and around Point Pleasant, I asked them about the Mothman. And they said, well, if it weren't for the Mothman Festival, this town would have closed. When the Mothman Festival started, there were 2 businesses in downtown that were open. The rest of the buildings were closed and in disrepair. The Mothman Festival now boasts almost 70,000 people and is the largest. It is the largest economic driver between Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Charleston, West Virginia. And that comes right out of the mouth of the Chamber of Commerce. They are grateful for it. By the way, Point Pleasant, West Virginia is a thriving little downtown. Every building is full. They got great restaurants. You can go get a moth burger. I want to go get a moth burger.
Sounds delicious.
It's a big old hamburger, and I want to go get one. I mean, I just think it's great. And
I'll take my moths on the side, please. Just kidding.
Okay, well, they just call it a moth burger. But anyway, most of my friends that go through there, they always go take a picture of themselves with the Mothman statue and send it to me. And it's great. You know, I mean, my friends recognize what the Mothman has done to that little town, and it's great. So we got to thank the Mothman for the economics of Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
And actually, Bishopville has done the same with the Lizardman. I actually have a T-shirt here from one of the past Lizardman festivals there. Okay, so I don't
Right.
blame these small towns for profiting off of their cryptids.
Well, they should, because here's something that I was told. I was at the Iris Festival. That's at
Mhm.
Swan Lake in Sumter, South Carolina. That's their big annual event, and it's in the spring. And I was there, standing there next to my booth, passing out Lizardman Festival flyers. And a teacher, a fourth grade teacher, stopped by and she said, this is really wonderful. I said, well, thank you very much. She said, I don't care if you believe in the lizard man or if you don't believe in the lizard man. But when you graduate from Sumter High School, you need to know what the legend is and be able to tell somebody about it, because this is where you grew up. And I think it's part of local culture. I can tell you that when I started the Lizardman Festival, the town of Bishopville was not happy, and
Hmm,
they did not support it for 2 years. Therefore, it moved.
really?
I moved it out of Bishopville. Yes.
Oh, really?
The second year, we had 240 people show up from as far away as Atlanta, and we had 6 people from Lee County show up because I took a count. 6 people showed
Okay.
up. Nobody cared. And it was a shame. I mean, I think they're doing better. They've got something called the Lizard Man Stomp, showing a little bit of pride in their wonderful cryptid. And
Hmm.
I think you should be. I mean, a lot of them were embarrassed about it. And I said, well, why are you embarrassed about it? That's like saying Bethlehem's embarrassed because they had a major religious miracle happen in Bethlehem. And you don't do that.
Yeah.
It's what it is. It's what Point Pleasant did with the Mothman. And it brought them a lot
Hmm.
of fame and a lot of great economy. And I think you just have to be proud of where you are and what's there. That's the way I was brought
Yeah.
up. And Jessica, I bet you were too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't say there's a whole lot of famous cryptids in the county where I live or in this area, but I mean, we do have Bigfoots in North Georgia, and we have Spearfinger up in the Appalachian Mountains. So I think it's wonderful. It's part of local legends and lore.
You mentioned Spearfinger. You are the
Yes, I
first
did.
person to mention that that entity to me, because I
Really?
for 1 year I ran the Cherokee Comicon, and
Really?
Spearfinger was the mascot. Greg Bo
Oh,
Watson,
she's
the, the famous
there's
comic book artist, drew Spearfinger, and I've got a copy of it. I'll send it to you.
I
It's
would
incredible.
love that. She's my favorite witch from up there. She has a long speared finger, and she really loves to stick it in the backs of little kids and get their livers and eat them. Okay, so
I
yeah,
know.
I there's a lot of stories behind Spearfinger, uh, stalking,
Yes,
even perhaps even Bigfoots and things like that. Yes.
right. So I'm glad you know Spearfinger.
I
That's
do.
great.
I know my whole team knows Spearfinger. We talk about her all the time. I don't know why I feel such a connection to Spearfinger, but I guess it's because I roam the woods late at night up in North Georgia. Yeah, so I have to look out for Spearfinger, John.
Okay, well, I have to look out for Bigfoot. In fact,
Yes.
I can tell you,
Oh,
and I know that we do not discuss this, but I know where to find Bigfoot in North Georgia, and I'll bet you do too.
I do. Woogaroo, thank you so much for that super chat. That's really sweet of you. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. John, I absolutely I do. Yes, there's a lot of Bigfoots up into the North Georgia mountains. Absolutely. And you just had your Bigfoot conference up in Clayton, Georgia.
I did.
There's activity up in that direction, that part of the state.
Oh, there sure is.
There
In
is.
fact, may I tell you my two favorite Bigfoot stories from up there? I know we're talking about Lizard Man, but
No, we're
since
talking
you
about
touched,
Bigfoot too. Yeah, let's talk
okay,
about it.
okay, great. First of all, I stay at a little bed and breakfast when I go up to Clayton. A friend of mine owns it. He gives me a good rate, and I love seeing him and his family.
I
He's
need to
got
meet
three,
your friend because I
he's
need
got
a good place to stay up there. Yeah.
well, he's got 3 great kids and a great common law wife. They are really
Nice.
wonderful.
Very nice.
So,
Yeah.
so what happened was I was up in Franklin, North Carolina, which, as you know, and your listeners might not know, it is just across the state line. Clayton is on the state line of Georgia and North Carolina.
Yep.
So what happened was I was up there a little bit late. I was trying to plan an event in Franklin that never got off the ground because of COVID. So anyway, I come down and I called him. I said, look, I'm running late. Just don't be scared. And when I come in at 10:30 or so, because it's late and I just left Franklin, and you got to be careful, and you can't drive so fast on those little mountain roads. You can't. It's dangerous.
Yeah, it's
So
very dangerous.
it took me about an hour to get from Franklin down there. It would take me a half hour during the day, but at night, you just got to be careful those little windy roads.
Ooh,
So
and there
anyway, I
might be a
got there.
Bigfoot on the side of the road too. You got to watch out, or a dog man.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
They're out. Believe me, they're out there. So anyway,
Yeah.
so I get down there and I get my stuff out of my car, and I drop it in his little bungalow, and then I go down to say hello. They were up waiting for me just to see how I was doing, and we had a little talk. It was great to see him. So then I go back to my little bungalow that he has, and I'm dead tired. I said, I'm going to have me a drink and pass out is what
Good
I'm
for
going to
you.
do. And so I sit there, I poured me a drink, and I sit on the futon that he had. And so I'm there and I'm just looking around, just enjoying the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jessica, this was in April, and I realized it was a little too quiet. There was something not right.
No,
Because
bugs chirping outside, huh?
no
That's the
nothing.
telltale sign. There's something out there.
Well, I know, but I didn't really think about it because I was tired. So I took a sip of my drink, set it down on the floor, and just exhaled. I realized there was no sounds. And then all of a sudden, there was the largest slam against the left wall of that little one-room bungalow, and it shook the entire building. Now, it takes a big push to shake a building. I
It
mean, it
does.
does. I mean, this thing was about 20 feet by 15 feet, and it was fairly well constructed. So, I mean, I thought, oh my God, what is this? And the first thing I thought was, oh, well, maybe it's a earthquake, because we do have earthquakes in South Carolina and in North
Yeah.
Georgia. So I said, oh my God, what is it? And then again, it's still dead quiet. Then I heard footsteps, and I heard one, a pause, then another. So it made it all along the left side of that bungalow, and I heard it. I could tell that it had made a turn, and it was walking toward the front door. Now, I can tell you that front door is something a 4-year-old could open. I mean, it had like a rubber strap,
Oh
and you went around.
no. Oh
Anybody could
no.
get in. And so I heard these slow, deliberate, and large footsteps. I mean, and I knew what it was. I knew immediately once I heard two of them, and I heard the distance between those footsteps. So I am sitting there, and I thought to myself, why me? Why
Oh
am
my
I
gosh.
going to see a Bigfoot? And I
Now,
was
did you have a
terrified.
weapon? I hope you had a weapon of some sort, even a baseball bat.
I had my cell phone.
You
Okay.
did.
That's what I had. And I'm just sitting there, and I didn't know what to do. And that is the closest I have ever come to having a heart attack.
I
I was
bet.
terrified. But then again, what do you do? So all of a sudden, the footsteps stopped directly in front of the door. And I said, oh no.
Oh gosh.
So I sat there as quietly as I could, and nothing else happened. So
Okay.
what I did was I downed that drink. I poured a triple, cut off the light and the fan above me, and I sat there in the dark.
You're like, might
I
as well
mean,
just get drunk at this point and just pass out,
well,
because I don't know what else to do.
as I said to myself, you know what? If I'm going to go, at least I'm not going to feel it as much as I would.
Exactly.
And
Just
so I
get
sat
numb.
there and
Okay.
finished that. And so then the next thing I know, I woke up. I had laid down. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and all was well. I heard the insects. and the rustling of, you know, a raccoon or a deer. I mean, I was hearing the natural, normal sounds.
Okay.
So I said, well, okay. So I crawled up properly in the bed and went to sleep. But I said, God, if I need to call somebody, and I looked down, and there was my phone sitting on 7%.
Oh,
And I said, God, I
of
can't even
course.
call anybody, because this was one of the, you know, this was like, 3 years ago. This was one of those old cell phones, and just when battery gets drained, it just drains. So I kept it as it was. I said, I've got one call left. If I have to dial 911 or whatever, I can't do anything. And I swore to myself I was not going to step outside of that little cabin until 7 a.m. and the sun was up. So I got up about 6:40, and I waited till 7. I'm a man of my convictions when it comes to something like this.
Hmm.
So I opened the door. Everything was fine. I walked to my car and I got my cell phone charger. I went back inside and sat there, and I watched it get up to about 20%. And then here comes the good part. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. What happened?
So what did I do at 7 o'clock in the morning? I called Robin McCrae.
Robin. Yeah, she'll know what to do.
I said, hey, Robin, how are you? And she started laughing at me. And here she is, a state away from me, almost half a state away from me. She started laughing. And she said, the Bigfoots told me they had some fun with you last night. They wanted to make sure you didn't come out. I said, they did. And she starts telling me about my adventure before I told her. Now, what is
Wow.
a psychic? I mean,
Yeah.
she's flat out a remote viewer and a psychic. And
Yeah.
you can't convince me otherwise. And so she told me that what had happened is there were two clans of them out there, and they were hunting, and they had young Bigfoots with them. And they
Hmm.
didn't want you surprised them, because they said, well, he always comes about 7:30 or 8 at night, but not at 11. So they wanted to make sure I stayed inside. They did. They sure
Wow.
but
They
did.
didn't want you getting
It was
hurt or hunted.
no, they didn't want me to interfere with what they were doing. So
Smart.
anyway, I go down and see my buddy and his family about 8:30, because I want to take a shower. So I walked in
Hmm.
there, and his three dogs come staggering out of their bedroom, and they looked like they had been hit over the head. They had been zapped. And I should have known something was very wrong, because whenever anything rustles in those trees and those woods, you know,
Hmm.
out there where that bungalow is, those
Hmm.
dogs run out the doggy door in the front door, and run up there and start running around. And I should have
Wow.
known something was wrong with the dogs. I mean, that's behavior that I'd known for 2 years. So I mean, I
Yeah.
was before the third Bigfoot conference. So anyway, it
Wow.
was amazing, and Robin knew all about it. She also told me the dogs had been zapped, and that's here she is. She's in the middle of South Carolina saying, "Well, the dogs were zapped, and that's why you didn't hear them." And I thought, "What are you doing, Robin? I mean, stop reading my mind." But anyway, it was great. It was
She
a
has an
wonderful time.
uncanny ability to do that, though, to communicate with the Sasquatches, all the Bigfoots. She's been able to communicate with a lot of the Bigfoots, with people that I
She
know.
does.
Yeah,
She does.
on
And so
point.
anyway, that's my story, and it is in the book Look Up in the Sky: Aliens, UFOs, and Bigfoot. And the third edition is now out. I have them for sale, and they'll be up on the internet for sale
Yeah,
first of the year. I got a lot to do toward my publishing to get the books up there and start doing the advertising, because I mean, I sell those books pretty regularly. Whenever I go to an event, I'll sell
yeah,
10 or 15 Look Up in the Skies. And I've also got the Bigfoot field guide for North Georgia. You know, it tells a little
yeah.
bit about what to do, tells about some of the sightings that we've had, especially the one at Tallulah Falls State Park. And
Hmm.
it's just really interesting. Yes, that's the book. That's actually the companion book. That's the one that Igor Burtsov and I wrote. And of course, it
Yeah,
had input from Robin, and it had input from Janice Carter and Igor Burtsov. It was a privilege. It's a privilege to have a title with Igor.
yeah,
It's one of the
yeah.
things that I'm very proud of. And and now I'm going to have one with John LeMay, and that's going to be good. That's coming out the first of the year. That's about the Bladenboro monster and shapeshifters. A lot of stuff about shapeshifters that
Yeah.
we're both finding out. Once you start doing research, I have an extra briefcase. I carry it in my back seat, and that's my paranormal briefcase. That's got all my articles and stuff for the books that I'm researching, and I got
Uh-huh.
a whole stack of them about shapeshifters. And then there was just an academic conference, and what they did is they listed their research questions, and I thought, well, I think maybe I'll just write about those research questions because I happen to know the answers off the top of my head because I've
Yeah.
I've just done this so long. And so it's going to be fun. I still enjoy research. I was a professor. I got 60 publications when I was a professor. I chaired a couple of international conferences. It was a lot of fun. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the research, not so much the teaching. The students didn't really, they were busy playing on their phones and stuff. They didn't do a lot of learning. Like I can guarantee you, when I was in college, you didn't do anything but listen to the teacher and take notes. That is all you did.
Yeah.
And they kind of don't do that anymore. They're doing whatever. But anyway, so I like doing the research that I do. And Jessica, this doesn't mean we have not done a research project together. Did you know that?
Well, we haven't yet. I'm
We
always
haven't
down.
yet.
No, not yet.
That's the word, yet. We're going to, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll get Matt involved and maybe
Yeah.
Trey. I'll get a whole team and
Well,
we'll do
actually,
something.
Trey's in the chat right now, John. Trey
Oh,
is in the
Trey,
chat. He said hello to us. He's getting ready for an anti-terrorism meeting that he's going to today. So yeah, he's in our chat right now. Yeah,
well, tell Trey I said hello.
he can
Hey,
hear you
Trey.
right now.
Good.
Hey, Trey.
Yes, great. Look
Yeah.
forward to having our next chat. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting. Last week, Barry Littleton and I, who was just on your show last night, he and I talked about shapeshifters last week on this show, and we got a lot of views on that show. That's something that a lot of people are very interested in, especially the skinwalkers and even reptilian humanoids. And John, I actually got one of those Wikipedia context things put on my video last week because YouTube wanted to make sure that anyone who watched my videos did not take a reptilian humanoid out of context. So I thought that was weird, but okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why YouTube is so worried about reptilian humanoids getting put out of context. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. It's okay. I might just suggest that you let me back on when John and I finish that book. Maybe we can have me and John, or I could just come on in January and tell you what all we're finding out a lot about shapeshifters. And we're finding a very unusual pattern of shape-shifting entities and sightings. It's like if you draw a wide band between North Carolina, drop it to Texas, and come back up to California, to the lower part of California, there were a ton of sightings in that band through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. It's like there was an epidemic. And there were also some sightings up in Tennessee near what's now Land Between the Lakes National Park. So,
that's where the dogmen are. Yeah.
Yeah, well, dogmen, I believe, are a category of shapeshifters.
I
They're
think some of
cryptid
them are.
shapeshifters.
And werewolves as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Werewolves are shapeshifters, right?
Okay, so now I guess let's get back to Lizardman, okay?
Let's do it. Yeah. We're talking about Lizardman. Well, actually, John, when I remote viewed the Lizardman of Skateboard Swamp, I picked up that he was a reptilian, basically kind of like a shape-shifting reptilian humanoid type creature. I did pick that up. I also picked up that there's more than one. There's several of them there.
Right. And let me tell you something that I was able to infer from that particular piece of research. There's something called, in biology, it's called the minimum viable population. And that discusses how many of a species is required for the species not to die out. Well, one article that I read said about 750. So it would take 750 Bigfoots to keep a Bigfoot population running. Say between Myrtle Beach and Charleston in the Francis Marion Forest, says there would need to be 750 Bigfoots. Now, Jessica, if there were 750 Bigfoots in that area, we would be tripping all over them, wouldn't we?
Well, I think there are probably that many up there. I mean, we literally have a lot of we have a lot of Bigfoots up in North Georgia in that area.
Right,
Uh,
but I
but
guess
we would be. Yeah.
here's where I'm leading with this. That says that they must go somewhere. And that
They
is the
do.
absolute argument for the fact that there are portals. Because where do they go? I mean, they're not standing around on the road hitching a ride.
Yeah.
And so they must go somewhere. So they are probably engaged in going through portals to wherever they go. So that is a fairly serious argument. I mean, you can infer they go somewhere. Well, they don't go up on Highway 17. You know, I'm talking about Francis Marion National Forest between Myrtle Beach and Charleston. So they don't go out on the road, and that place is explored so much. So they must go into a portal and vanish from
Yeah.
our sight. So that's, I mean, that's reason enough to say that there must be portals. And of course there are portals. I know that you have experienced them, and I know you
Mhm.
have probably seen one or two, right?
Well, my team has. Yeah, Trey was in the chat today. Yeah, he's the head of that team. We have a place that we research called the South Skinwalker Ranch. We call it the Meadow. And we have encountered a portal there that our team documented, and we sent two of our team members into this portal, and they came back out of it to tell the story. So yeah, I believe that there's portals. Of course, there's people that will argue that and say, oh, they live in caves. Okay, well, and there are cave systems all throughout the mountains, all throughout our entire country. I think so. But I've had cave experts on my shows, and they seem to think otherwise. They don't believe that the Bigfoots are all living in caves. They could be, but it's not 100%. We don't believe that.
Right. And one thing that I've wondered is that why don't we send some drones, lighted drones, into these caves? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if y'all have done that, but I mean, I think
I haven't. I don't. I'm not a spelunker. I'm not into caves too much. I don't like tight squeezes and stuff. I get claustrophobic. So,
I'll tell you what,
but I think that's a good idea.
I'm not
Robot
going
dogs and stuff can go in there.
exactly. And I mean, and another place we need to do that is up there in Kelly, um, Kentucky, where they have
Mhm.
the Kelly Green Men Festival, and they have some terrible, terrible legends about things in those caves. And I don't know why we don't just, go in there with drones, but maybe
Interesting.
the feds have, maybe someone has, I don't know. But I mean, I think that would be the next order of business, is to use
Yeah.
drones to do some of our more frightening exploration.
John, I actually had someone ask me if I would be interested in remote viewing. I think it's called the Manatee Caves up in Kentucky. I believe it's the Manatee Caves, and they say those are super anomalous up there. So, especially around Kentucky, that they got a lot of high strangeness up there.
They really do. And if it hadn't been for COVID, we would have had the Kentucky Paranormal Conference in and I can't remember the town, in just one of these little towns. And it was going to be a lot of fun, and everybody was interested. And then here came COVID, and I haven't set about restarting that. I tell you what, Kentucky is just a long way away. For me, I'm in Myrtle Beach, so it's a
It
long
is for
way
me
away.
too. Yeah. But I've got a lot of friends up there now. Hey, I've got a lot of friends up there. Actually, I see one or two in the chat right now that live in Kentucky. Okay, I'm not going to call them out. But we do have a couple. So I'm sure that a lot of we have people that could help us out there. That's all I'm going
Well,
to
that's
say.
good. Maybe we
Yeah.
can all meet up there.
Yeah.
I got a couple spots that I know, and that's why I was interested in doing something up there. But anyway, we can talk about that later.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. We'll talk about it. Brown Dwarf says mammoth caves are that sound interesting. Now, I mean, I don't know. I believe, like you, John, that Bigfoots are interdimensional beings. Now, how that is, I'm not sure. I mean, what does interdimensional even mean? I mean, are they changing their frequency and their vibration to go into portals? Are they just walking into portals? I know my teammates walked into what we consider to be a portal, and they didn't. Their heat signatures did disappear, but they came right back out. It was very odd, very strange, right?
Well, now let
But
me ask you this: did they come
mhm.
out the same place they went in?
Yes, they did. As far as I
Okay.
know, we have that video of it. And so, yes, it was the portal was only visible through the thermal imaging camera. Okay, so
Okay.
they could not see it with their own eyes, and it was shaped like a cube. Okay, I call it the cube. But then after they walked out of it, when they walked, they didn't know they were walking into it. But once they got over to it, their heat signatures disappeared. They said the environment changed. They couldn't see the stars any longer. The vegetation on the ground changed. The temperature changed. It was like walking through a black velvet curtain, is how it was described. And so they both knew there was something off. They walked back out, but to them they didn't know they were inside anything. They just knew the environment had changed, and they walked back out, and their heat signatures reappeared. So yeah, could that have been? Is that alien technology, John? You think, or do you think it's? We don't know. Right?
But I just reached up on my dashboard and I grabbed John LeMay's magazine, Strange West, and I've got a story in there about what can happen to a person when they step in. It's called the Devil's Cave in Mexico.
Okay.
A lot of legend behind that, and a lot of people have disappeared in the Devil's Cave, never to come back.
Whoa.
And one of them was Ambrose Bierce.
Okay.
So I had, he was the very famous horror writer, and he was one of the leading intellects of the late 1800s. He was the editor of the San Francisco Chronicle for about the time Nancy Pelosi was born, back in,
Okay. Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry, I had to get a Nancy Pelosi joke in there.
Oh no.
But anyway, it's a really neat story, and the story was written by a remote viewer, or the tale was given to me by a remote viewer that saw what happened to Ambrose Bierce.
Ooh.
And here's the interesting thing. That story was told to me about 15 years ago. And John LeMay, in fact, I want you to get John LeMay on the show. He's a great guy.
Oh, I'm going to have to now.
Oh, he's great. And what happened is John LeMay calls me up on a Sunday afternoon. He says, John, you won't believe what I just found out. I said, what? He said, you told me that story of Ambrose Bierce disappearing into a cave and meeting the devil. I said, yeah. He said, do you know that there is now evidence? Some historians have found out the last place Ambrose Bierce was seen, it was during the Mexican-American War, was walking into the Devil's Cave. He said, that's exactly what you told me 15 years, that you had experienced from that remote viewer 15 years ago. That's exactly what you told me. I said, wow. Then I guess I better write the story. He said, yeah, you better. So I start writing it, and then lo and behold, the end of next week I had finished, and he said, John, I didn't tell you until you got that story written, but I'm putting out the first issue of Strange West magazine, and I want your story because it's an old West story. So I said, sure. So I gave it to him. He did a little editing, and boom, there it is in Strange West magazine. Just type in Strange West magazine into Google, and it'll go to his page on Amazon, and you can buy your copy. It's about $5. It's great. He's got great articles. And the first theme was Ambrose Bierce. The next theme is going to be my favorite, vampires.
Oh, I just did a show on vampires about a couple of weeks ago, John. The vampire in Mineral Point, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, now, Matt brought to my attention several vampire stories from Western Virginia, that part near north of Abingdon, kind of like in his neck of the woods. And so, so there are some stories of vampires over there. There are more stories about vampires once you start looking them up. There are more stories than people would imagine. And, everybody says, the skeptics say, oh, there's no such thing as vampires. Well, that's all right. You better tell. Why don't you tell some of these people that have experienced them? They know. Right. And so anyway, it's very interesting. And I love Strange West magazine. May I just show the...
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Strange West magazine. Yeah.
That's right. And John LeMay is the primary author, and he's the editor, and he did a great job on this. And so I read it from cover to cover, and my story's in there, so you can see it. And I got a very good artist, and he drew a picture of Ambrose Bierce meeting the devil. And it's
The
it's a
devil.
cool picture.
Woo. Yeah. Well,
Uh-huh.
I got it on good authority. Matthew Delph has a vampire in a bottle. Okay. So did he tell you about that?
Oh yeah. He's shown me that. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
I would not want that in my house because what if the bottle broke? What happens then?
Well,
You get a vampire in your house?
it's about what happens when you let the genie out of the bottle.
The
You
vampire
better
out of the
be
bottle. That's
careful.
right.
You better be careful about those wishes because they might come. It might be the monkey's paw, which would,
Yeah.
that's a great short story about a couple who lost their son and they wished him to come back. And so later that night, banging on the door, and they realized that something had just dug itself up from the grave. It's a great story. Everybody used to have to read that back in high school. They don't do that anymore. I don't think they read in high schools. But we had to read stories like that.
I was an
And
English major in college. I love reading.
mhm,
I loved it until
I
I
do
was an
too.
English major. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
like it too. So
Yeah.
so anyway, I guess back to our buddy the lizard man.
Oh yeah. Let's
Um,
bring it back around.
there there is an odd coincidence is that Scapor Swamp is right next to the very scary Shaw Air Force Base.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, and we always talk about conspiracy theories about the government tinkering around with DNA and stuff. Well, it's mighty odd that that lizard man is right next to Shaw Air Force Base. You can't get on there for nothing. There's a chain link fence and cameras all around that place.
Hmm.
And it's kind of scary. And so you never know what goes on Shaw Air Force Base. And the lizard man's right next to it. And there have been several Bigfoot sightings. I don't really talk about them because they're right next to an Air Force base, and I don't want two tall, lanky guys in black visiting me
And they
and saying you
might.
shouldn't have done that. Well,
You
they
never
might. I mean,
know. Well,
I've
some people
had
describe the lizard man as looking kind of like a Bigfoot. It had a cone-shaped head, kind of, and so they're different. There's not just that one account of that young man who was changing his tire, Christopher Davis. There were multiple accounts of sightings of this lizard man
there
by
were
multiple
there were
people.
there were 14 stories
Hmm.
in well, there were 12 plus two more that didn't make it into the Lee County Observer, and I've got all those chronicled in my book. And so
Yeah.
it's a great reference. It's again, it's not about hysterical sightings. It's about research that anybody could have done. It just took time and took care. I've got the Lizard Man Trail, the list of places where the Lizard Man was seen, and I
Hmm.
describe them a little bit. And so that, and I've got the Lee County Observer, then I've got the research articles where I talked to people in Bishopville, and then of course drawings of the main characters, Christopher Davis, Sheriff Liston Truesdale, and all the people that seemed to be involved in that Lizard Man tale from 1988 to 1990. So I've got all that
Wow.
in the book, and I think it's pretty. Plus, I've got a summary of an interview with Lyle Blackburn that was done in February of 2020. So, and
Yeah.
he wrote that first book, Lizard Man: The True Story of the Bishopville Monster. But what his book is about, he spoke with Liston Truesdale, who let him see all of the police reports. The police reports, of course, have vanished. And so have any records of those police reports in Sumter County. And so have all the records of Christopher Davis's death. They are gone.
Well,
You
didn't
can't find.
he died? How long ago did he pass away? Has it been recently?
Golly, I think it was about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And he was shot. Someone came to his front door and shot him.
Hmm. Was it
Now,
so you're saying it was maybe suspicious?
they portrayed him as a drug dealer.
Hmm.
He was a man who lived with his couple of kids. And he has been portrayed as everything bad and worthless and on drugs and everything. No, he's not. I think he was a good man. I know that he was because I interviewed his cousin. I can't
Wow.
tell where she worked, but she still works there. I can
Yeah.
walk into Bishopville and walk right to her desk.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, there's some things you just can't tell.
Yeah.
But she told me In fact, it was very interesting. She told me what happened to the car, the famous car that
The
the
one,
lizard
his
supposedly
car?
jumped on. Uh-huh.
What? Tell us. I'd love to hear this.
Okay, first of all, there was a young man, he was about 20, and he wrote for a local magazine in Florence.
Okay.
And he was all the time going out trying to find good stories.
Uh-huh.
So what happened was he went to the old, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but there was an old restaurant where people used to hang out and talk about Lizardman. And so he went to there, and he saw Chris Davis, who was sitting there with his car. And Chris was charging, I think, a couple of bucks for people to get their picture taken with him and the car. God, I wish I had known about that. I would have gone over there. But anyway, this young man who was the author, and I've got his name in the book, said that that car was messed up. And there were large scratch marks on the top and on the back.
Yeah.
And he said it was a mess, but it still ran. And so one day, Chris Davis came home and he asked his father, "Where's the car?" His father said, "I scrapped it because it brought nothing but bad luck to you and your house." Because Chris was a basketball player. He dropped out of high school to pursue fame through the Lizardman. It never
Oh,
came. So
yeah.
he was a non-college graduate. He was a hard worker, but he was a non-college graduate, and I mean high school graduate. And that's what happened. His dad just got rid of it. I mean, what a great artifact.
Man, that car
That
would
would have
rake
been
in a bunch
incredible.
of money today, wouldn't it, John? A collector's item.
Well, it would. So
It
anyway, and
would.
so I know, and
I know people that would
I
buy it.
have the, oh God,
Yeah.
yes. And then in my book, I also have a report from this gentleman who spoke with Chris, and he described the damage to the car. In fact, there's another report by a couple who I believe were somewhat neighbors of the Davises, and they described what bad shape it was in. Just all of a sudden overnight, that June night, it was partially destroyed. So anyway, we've got a couple of third-hand reports or second-hand reports,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's what it is, and it's a shame that Mr. Davis, the older Mr. Davis, Chris's father, got tired of it and you know just got rid of it. It's a shame. But anyway,
Yeah. I
that's what happened to the car. And read
well,
more in the book.
did they have any pictures of his actual car? Do you remember seeing any pictures?
No, I
Okay.
do not.
But we do have pictures of other people in the town. Their cars were attacked by something, and I have some pictures. I think this was a minivan, perhaps. I'm not sure what kind. It's a Dodge Ram or something, some kind of Dodge.
Right, right.
But
Now,
those were some pictures, and actually there's someone that I know personally who lived in Charleston, around that area. He actually drove out to Bishopville and saw some of the damage of these cars that were damaged. I don't believe he saw the original Christopher Davis car, but he saw cars like this that had damage, and he was a firm believer in Lizardman after he saw that.
would it be possible offline you could put me in contact with that gentleman?
Well, he has passed away since this, so I can't. I cannot.
So
I cannot.
maybe I could just talk with you, and I
Yeah.
might sneak that into the book. I think that'd be a great
Yeah.
sneak.
Oh, my mother is one of her very best friends. So yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
great.
She'd
Well,
love to talk to you about it. I'm sure.
right, and I'd like to talk with you about it as well. I think
Okay.
that's a worthwhile little addition to this book, The Lizard Man Companion.
Absolutely. I'm volunteering my mom. So if you're in the chat, mom, I know she's watching right now. Get ready. Okay, I'll put y'all in touch. Yeah, but it was pretty terrorizing, I would assume, to all the people who lived in that little community. Now, John, I actually found this when I was doing some research as well. Is that the local, I believe, what is this? It's like the local, I want to say wildlife management or chamber of commerce or somebody had put out a warning, and it was kind of like a joke. Okay. Over the past few years, they were having an eclipse, and they put this out to the town. They said, this is around
Yeah.
Bishopville. And they were saying that these are possible places where the Lizardman had been sighted. So please take heed during the eclipse.
Okay. I would love to have a copy of that picture. I will
send that to you. Yes.
Yeah. And
emergency management. It was their emergency management organization.
I've got that in the book.
You do?
That's in my book. I found that, but I don't have that that
I'll
map,
send it to you.
And I'd really like to. So yeah, it's really cool. There's a lot of interesting stuff, and I think the more that we talk about things, the more we can put things together and really get a good picture. I think it happened. I mean, I think 12 police reports and 2 other sightings. I mean, I pretty much know it happened. I mean, there aren't that many crazy people telling the same story. They're really not.
Yeah.
And I met when I was in Florence, at Florence Comicon. I met a lady, and she gave me her phone number. Of course, it was disconnected, but she told me that during that whole time period, the Lizardman would occasionally sleep in a corner of her front yard, and she would always try to call the police, but it always seemed to you to get out of there when the police came.
Oh my gosh!
And then she didn't want to be, she didn't want her name in it, and this and that and this and that. There are a lot more people I'm finding that have had cryptid and UFO sightings and do not want to tell about them. There really are.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, people don't want to even talk about it because you get ridiculed. Okay. And you'll lose your job and the neighbors won't like you anymore and all that kind of stuff. So
I know.
Yeah. Well, so she was claiming that a lizard man was sleeping in her yard. That's pretty scary. That's very scary.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Wow. Well, okay. So, John, have there been any other recent Lizardman sightings that you know of since the last one was in like 2001, maybe? Have there been any other ones?
I do not know of any since then. That's about the time they ended. But I thought this year was going to be drier and hotter than it was, and we might get to see some lizard men.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call them.
Lizard people.
Uh-huh.
Yes. We don't. Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, yeah. Well, does Bishopville also have a bunch of UFO sightings? Because a lot of times all of this phenomenon is kind of clumped together, like Bigfoots, Lizardman, reptilians, portals, UFOs, aliens. Are there other reports?
I didn't find any, or none were reported. Let's put it this way. None were reported to me.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, that would be my question. So, okay. Well, Dr. John, this has been a really fun talk with you today, and I really appreciate you coming on my show today. Now, where can people find you? I know you have ScaryCast podcast. Where can people find that? Dr. John, are you there? Okay. Well, Dr. John is there or not, I'm not sure. I'm going to go ahead and put ScaryCast up on the screen today. I think Dr. John might be frozen. I hope it's not me that's frozen because it usually is. So ScaryCast is on Blog Talk Radio. Go to www.blogtalkradio.com/Comicon stars. COMICONSTARS. And that's where you can find ScaryCast. And they just aired last night. So I believe that's every Tuesday night. Last night, Barry Littleton, our friend, was their guest on that show. And they talked about a lot of Bigfoot stuff and aliens and UFOs. Everything we're talking about today, pretty much, they talked about last night. So you guys, please go there and be sure to check out Dr. John's books. It's Dr. John Stamey. And let's see, his latest book, I don't have it to show you guys, but we've got his Bigfoot Explorer's Introduction to Hominology. And let me take this down so you can see it. We also have Lizardman, Bigfoot, and Friends. And Look Up in the Sky, Aliens, UFOs, and Anomalies by Dr. John Stamey. So everybody, please go get your copies of these books. I believe you can find them on Amazon. And Dr. John, I just want to thank you so much. I'm not sure if you can still hear me right now, but I do want to thank you for being here today. And I hope that you'll come back and spend some more time with me. And I'm not sure what Comicons you got going on in the future, but we'll bring you back so you can tell us. Okay. So Dr. John, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to take you down because you're frozen on my screen. And thank you so much. We will see you soon. And everybody, thank y'all for being here. This has been a lot of fun today. And thank y'all so much. I believe it was Woogaroo with that super chat today. Thank you so much. That really helps me out in all my shows. You guys, if anybody wants to support what I do, you guys go visit my shop, War Woman Good. It's on Etsy, War Woman Goods with an S. It's on Etsy, and that's pretty much how I sponsor everything I'm doing right now. So you guys go do that, please. And it is Christmas almost, so y'all go buy some stuff. And also I do tarot and oracle card readings. I do private readings for people, so y'all can get those on my website. It's thecryptidhuntress.com. So please do that. And also I've got shows this weekend that I would love for you guys to join me on. I have on Friday, my remote viewing investigation show. I'm going to be, I believe I'm going to remote view. I've already remote viewed it. The Conjuring House. Okay. I did that. I believe I did that for Stacy Brown down in Florida at some point. And I'm going to make that into a show kind of. So I'm going to do some more remote viewing of that. And so that'll be on Friday night. And then this weekend, I'm at Spaced Out Radio. I may be taking Saturday off. So I'm not sure right now, but I will definitely be there on Sunday night. So you guys, please join me at Spaced Out Radio. And until next time, you guys, I'll be back here next week and I'll have another great guest. I believe at the moment I have D.A. Roberts coming on Glitch in the Matrix next week. We'll probably be talking about Dogman. Okay, of course. So it's going to be another fun one. Thanks again to everybody for tuning in today. And I hope you'll have a great day. Thank you so much to Dr. John Stamey for being here with me today. You guys go check out ScaryCast podcast on Blog Talk Radio. All right. You guys have, y'all have an amazing day. Oh my gosh, Woogaroo. Thank you. I got you right before I was looking down at my phone. I got you right before I got out here. You got me. Thank you so much. That is so sweet. I really do appreciate all the support and all the love. Thank y'all so much. I got my friend Whitney in the chat. That's one of my girlfriends from way back in the day. What's up, girl? And yes, and everybody's okay. Thank you, War Criminal, for lurking this whole time. Anybody that stuck with me this whole show, you guys are the best. Everybody's the best. I'm having so much fun doing all these shows. And yeah. Oh, and also I have a Patreon. If anybody wants to join Patreon, it's the Cryptid Huntress over on Patreon. I have a few of my members actually are in here today. And I want to thank you guys for all the support there. That actually really does help me out a lot too. And so that's especially if you're really interested in the remote viewing that I do. I put all of my remote viewing data there in Patreon. And I do some remote viewing targets for you guys and do practice targets with my members. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you again so much for being here. And I will see y'all Friday. Y'all have a good day. Bye. Bye.